I believe that every person on this planet is in sales in some way, because we always have to stick up for ourselves in some way, shape, or form, whether it's, trying to convince your spouse at some point in time of something, trying to convince your kids of something. Even when you're a kid and you're a student, there's always that negotiation that might go on with teachers or friends.
Parents.
With parents, we're
Yeah.
always selling ourselves. So I think it's really important to learn and realize that it's good to have salesmanship and skills that you can, I guess, hone and develop. Especially in business, you need to have some type of salesmanship.
So why don't you tell our listeners what you do? I mean, it's interesting because you have just a very strong desire to help. Like that comes through in your communication and how you put yourself out there. And what do you do that forwards that?
Well, so by day, I'm a recruiter. I own a very niche recruitment firm that's specialized in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. So we really only focus on one specific type of individual that works in the biotech and pharmaceutical industry. And that's called a medical science liaison, which not that I expect anybody that's listening to know what that is, but it's like a highly scientific sales rep, for lack of a better word, which that's, I think, kind of sort of taboo because these medical science liaisons don't promote anything. So they're not sales reps.
Okay.
But they're highly scientific, field-based professionals. They're called MSLs, medical science liaisons. I started doing that in like 20 years ago was when we first started. So I've become somewhat of an expert in the space. Started a podcast in 2020, March of 2020. So 3 years ago.
Yep.
And it just took off and became a huge success. And there's a huge listener community in 88 countries. It's like almost 300,000 listeners.
Wow.
So it's a big community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's awesome. And honestly, and you mentioned giving back. The reason I started the podcast was because there are so many people that are looking to break into this type of position, and there's very few jobs, that there's this huge community of what we call aspiring MSLs looking to break in. And I'll be honest, Angie, I can't talk to everybody. There's only so many hours in the day. So I started to create video and I started to write articles specifically for this for this community and this population. And then the podcast idea came about and I was like, well, that could be a really good way to broadcast messaging, content, and kind of a how-to for this community. And that's, I think, why it took off. So yeah, I love to help people, and it's good to have a way to do it on a mass scale.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, it sounds so niche that it is, there's that many people wanting this position and seeking it out and trying to get information. Like, that seems crazy to me.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's awesome.
No, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Like, I look at the numbers and it's insane. And I just think that it shows how many people want to get into the pharmaceutical industry. There's a lot of PhDs and PharmDs and even MDs that are out there that don't want to be clinicians. So this is a really good opportunity for them to get into the pharmaceutical industry, use their scientific acumen, and their experience on behalf of pharma and biotech, as opposed to maybe the academic community. So it's a huge, huge opportunity for someone who's a new PhD or a new pharmacy student.
I guess I'm surprised as well, because I don't know how great of a reputation big pharma has these days. So I guess it's intriguing that there's still so many people that are flocking to be part of that with, everything that's gone on in recent years.
Yeah, well, and I could speak on both sides of that, because being in pharma I'm a pharma guy for 30 plus years. Yeah. I spent 10 years as a pharmaceutical sales rep before I started my business. And there's both sides of it. The pharmaceutical industry is saving lives every day.
Yeah.
Love them or hate them, saving lives every day. There are people out there that are hopeless. There are diseases that are untreatable right now. And the pharmaceutical industry is pouring billions of dollars into research and development to extend the quality of life for those people and giving families the ability to have more time with loved ones. So there's a real positive side to the pharmaceutical industry. And then there's the other side, which is really ugly. And I don't want to get into the ugly side because I'm a positive guy and I hate to go negative, but there's a lot of negative stuff that goes along with it. But when you're looking to establish yourself in a career and you look at the options and alternatives that are available to you, and one of those is, well, I'm a clinician and I just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a degree, but that's going to require me to work in a clinic or work in an academic setting for 80 hours a week at really what would be limited pay for that type of background. Or I can go get a job as a medical science liaison and make, I don't know, $150,000 to $220,000 a year, plus bonus, car allowance, and company stock. I think I'm going to work for pharma.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it is a wise career choice because at the end of the day, pharma's not going anywhere. And so, especially with these times where people aren't assured positions are good jobs, there's always going to be a job with that.
Yeah, for sure. And look, at the end of the day, if we look around, and granted, I know that there's a lot more I can say about the pharmaceutical industry, but if we look around, there's just seems to be dysfunction in every part of society, whether we can look at any industry, the financial industry, the banking industry, the healthcare industry, of all things, right? It's crazy. So I've learned to try to take the bad with the good when it comes to, I got to wake up every day and be motivated and excited about what I do. And I choose to try to help people as opposed to worrying about all the other nonsense that's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think like you hit it on the head. Whenever there's a lot of money involved, there's going to be corruption. There is just something about big money that equates to people trying to manipulate that system in whatever way they can to profit from it, for sure.
Well, I live in New Jersey, the corruption capital of the world.
Is there some mob stuff happening out there?
Oh man, it's like I'm almost embarrassed. Like people ask me where I'm from, and I'm like, Jersey.
I don't know. Do you think I don't think it still has that same stigma, especially since Jersey Shore now it's more associated with that angle of things as opposed to the mob scene.
Let's break it down, right? We have the Sopranos, we have Jersey Shore, we have Jersey Housewives, right? So like I don't know, like if you just look at popular culture and the media and what that portrays, it doesn't give us a very good reputation. But listen, I am very proud of where I'm from. I love where I live. But there's some interesting, there's some messed up parts of it. So
have you always lived in Jersey? Just born and raised and never left?
Born and raised. So born and raised in New Jersey, but I do have a home in South Florida. So I get to Florida a lot, and I have a place at the Jersey Shore. So fun fact, my house at the Jersey Shore is like 3 miles from where the house that they filmed the Jersey Shore at. My house, not the house I grew up in, but where I grew up, the house, actually, my wife and I, our first house when we got married was 2 miles down the road from Tony Soprano's house. Like literally the legit house that they filmed Tony Soprano's house was 2 miles down the road. So I grew up in Caldwell, New Jersey. So North Caldwell is where David Chase is from. He's the founder and writer of The Sopranos. So a good portion of the show is filmed where I used to live. So yeah, So I have a Sopranos connection and Jersey Shore connection. I'm so proud of it too. You could see it. I'm so proud.
You should be. I mean, Sopranos is probably one of my all-time favorite series. Like I was really bummed, when it ended. And then obviously with Tony dying in recent years, his name isn't Tony. I'll just always know him as Tony. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. And it's got to be really cool for you too, because the beginning of every show, they're just going through all the areas of Jersey. Like it must be like, oh, I know that place. I know that place. I know that place. Because for me, I felt like I knew that place just after watching the beginning.
Well, I could tell you, if you ever come visit me in Jersey, and we'll do the Sopranos tour, and I will drive you through all of the different places. So I built a house back in West Caldwell. So there's North Caldwell, West Caldwell, and all those communities are very, very close. They're really close to each other.
Yeah.
So the house that I built was right next to the neighborhood where they filmed a lot of episodes, because the house they used for Christopher Moltisanti's house was in that neighborhood. So I could see Christopher Moltisanti's house from my 3rd floor.
Wow.
Now, when I was building my house, it was super noisy because there was a lot of rock. In order for them to get in to dig out the foundation, they had to go through rock. So they were hammering away all day long. So sure enough, one day I get a phone call. I'm not making this up. I get a phone call, and it's like Rocco Calabrese calls me up. That was the guy's name. It was like Rocco something. And he said, I'm a producer from HBO Productions. And I'm like, what? Really? Who is this? Like, this is a joke. He said, no, we're filming The Sopranos in your neighborhood. I know you have a construction project, and it's too noisy. We need to shut you down. And I'm like, bro, you can't shut me down. Like, I'm paying like $2,000 a day for that machine that's making all the noise. Like, if I shut it down, then I'm losing money. So he said, I'll make you a deal. He's like, we're not going to shut you down for the full day. It's just when we're shooting, and we'll reimburse you for whatever it is that you may be charged. Like, just send us the receipts. I'm like, this can't be true. So sure enough, the guy invites me to the set. So there's a scene where Paulie Walnuts gets upset with Christopher, and he drives to his house and he does donuts on the front lawn. I don't know if you remember that scene, but I was watching that scene from the driveway.
Wow.
Now that's my neighbor Louie's house. So the funny thing is, and I think that's where they got my number. So they never shut us down, but they sent me a check for $2,000. So I actually wound up with a check for $2,000, and it literally has the Sopranos logo on it.
So cool.
It's pretty cool. I'll actually show it to you. It's awesome. You
just saved it. You didn't even cash it. You're like, I'm framing it.
Actually, what I did is I took a photocopy of it and then I cashed it.
Okay, good. That makes way more sense. I mean, I like memories and all too, but $2,000 is $2,000.
I want the money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. My son's one of his roommates in college, his dad was one of the police officers from Jersey and was almost permanently stationed there for 8 years, just protecting the actors and the whole scene. So he got very familiar with all the Sopranos people as well.
Well, the mob community, and I'm like the mob community and where that was all filmed, like there's a real element, a mafia element in that area, in my area. A lot of the Sopranos stuff is based on real stuff.
Right.
Even small stories, not like, some of the bigger stuff is obviously it's HBO, it's Hollywood, but there's some stories that were kind of melded into that storyline that were true. And I have friends and family members that were very friendly with people that we just knew him as, oh, that's Uncle Vinny, or that's, Joey, whatever. Everybody has a nickname, right?
Yep.
And those guys were, connected in some way. Not everybody was Tony Soprano. Not everybody killed people, but there was there's a lot of small time guys that literally just run numbers and take bets, and they're still a part, of the whole thing.
So you think it's still alive and well, the mafia? I feel like there's been so much exposure that it's difficult for them to operate in the manner they once did.
Yeah, it's still alive for sure. Yeah. Okay. Not to the extent that it was. It's really been broken down, but there's still a lot of guys out there that they don't have a day job. Their day job is they hang out at social clubs, just like you see them hanging out at Satriel's pork store. And maybe because they're even with legalized gambling, there's still huge guys out there with huge books that are taking bets and loaning money. And there's always going to be that shady, illegal element that goes on. And the funny thing is, when you meet these guys and you know these guys, they're the nicest people in the world. I know that they're portrayed as these big tough guys, which many of them are, but they're also like family guys and sweethearts at the same time.
That's awesome. See, that's way more exciting than anything going on out here in California. You know, that's
well, it's funny. So I didn't know this we were going to talk about today, but since we're talking about it, so I was with a buddy of mine recently, a whole bunch of us. I went to Rutgers University and I wrestled at Rutgers, and a couple times a year, me and all the guys that I wrestle with, we get together. So recently we were out to dinner, and my buddy Michael, who's from Manalapan, New Jersey, there's a element down there as well. He tells a story where he was a kid and his father was friendly with a big time mob guy, and they were out to dinner, and it was like a pretty like fancy place, and Mike was young and he wanted a hamburger, but it was a fancy place. They didn't have hamburger on the menu. So his father is having a conversation with the big mob boss, whoever the guy was. I can't say, I know who it is, but whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Mike's crying. He's crying, like literally making a scene. So finally, the mob guy says, Michael, settle down. It's okay. He calls the waiter over, right? Waiter comes over. He gets in the guy's face and he goes, get the kid a hamburger. Sure enough, literally 5 minutes later, Mike said this huge hamburger shows up on his plate, and he didn't say a word for the rest of the time. So that's how it works when you have friends in the mob.
Exactly. You know, to have that kind of power to just, you know, make things go your way. That's pretty sweet.
Get the kid a hamburger.
So good. So when you were in college, were you mostly there for sports, or you already kind of knew where you wanted to go in life?
I had no idea where I wanted to go. I just found out like 2 weeks ago where I want to go. No. When I went to college, I did go to college on a wrestling scholarship. Not that I was that great or it was like a big deal. The Rutgers wrestling program at that point, I will say, was more of a glorified high school program. And we were good. It's Division I. I don't want to take anything away from it. I certainly didn't take it as seriously as I should have. It's not what it is today. It was a really good foundation for me. That's where I met some of my best friends that I've really ever known. But college for me was a way to kind of not find myself, but to mature. I needed that 4 years to mature. I was not ready. And then when I graduated, I got a sales job. And the only reason I got a sales job is because everyone told me, you need to be in sales. You need to be in sales. So I majored in communications because that was the closest thing that there was to a sales focus back then, talking a long time ago. And I got a job working for US Healthcare selling HMO plans. That was, you're talking 1990. That's like, no one knew what an HMO was.
Yeah.
Like it was,
insurance wasn't mandatory like it is today.
No. And it was so like, I would go out there, people like, oh, you mean I have to change my doctor? Like, I don't want this.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard sell. I did that for like 2 years. And then I wound up in the selling pharmaceuticals and got into this industry. But I literally needed that 4 years to kind of figure some things out. I took a shot, got into sales, had a feeling that that's what I should be doing. And it was a good hunch because I really never looked back. I've always been in some type of sales capacity.
I feel like good salespeople can pretty much do anything because you can talk your way into or out of anything if you have good sort of sales or communication skills, for sure.
I agree with, I believe that every person on this planet is in sales in some way, because we always have to stick up for ourselves in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's, trying to convince your spouse at some point in time of something, trying to convince your kids of something. Even when you're a kid and you're a student, there's always that negotiation that might go on with teachers or friends.
Parents.
with parents, we're
Yeah.
always selling ourselves. So I think it's really important to learn and realize that it's good to have salesmanship and skills that you can, I guess, hone and develop. Especially in business, you need to have some type of salesmanship.
I agree. But I also think it's really important that there's a genuineness, because when someone's trying to quote unquote sell me, I am totally turned off. But if I'm having a good conversation with somebody and I'm convinced of I actually do want this, it's a much easier sell for me. Yeah, I don't like quote unquote salesy people, but I, at the same time, you're right. I kind of, with my business, do a similar thing and can be sold things if it's
Well,
done
and
in a genuine way.
I agree with that. It is an art.
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely an art form to it.
Yeah.
Read the book, and I could tell you it's not a sales book, but there's a book called Never Split the Difference by
Oh, yeah.
Chris Voss.
I've listened to
And
it.
Chris Voss is an FBI negotiator. He spent 40 years in the FBI, whatever. This really isn't just a book on negotiation. This is a book on how to develop better relationships, how to deal with difficult people, how to be good in a conversation. And there is an element of salesmanship in this, but it's not trickery. It's not manipulation. It's being able to learn how to lead with empathy and make it about the other person and not making it about you. So when you make it about the other person, there's nothing salesy about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a great book.
it is. Yeah, I think I think it's in that book. I'm not sure, but I've always gone by, and it's sort of the counselor in me being interested and not being interesting. Because
Yeah.
when you're more interested in somebody else and you're not like performing and trying to be the interesting person, it always goes way better.
I think that's Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
Yeah. The way to be interesting is to be interested. I
Yes.
think that's the quote. I think it's Dale Carnegie. I could be wrong, but yeah, no, it's the same. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Chris Voss uses that quote in the book.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it makes a lot of sense, because if you genuinely care about others, and I think that's why I'm, in the position that I am, because I always lead with that, is to help others, whatever that takes. It gets a far better response than trying to sell or be like fun and cool or whatever it is that's going to draw attention or attraction to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
you're so good. You have this natural way about you where and it's a very unapologetic way. You come across as someone who knows yourself, but also is very considerate of others. And what I mean by unapologetic is like, and the first time I met you, I was like, wow, this is a confident woman, and that, but when you unpack it and then you get to know you deeper, you're like, wow, this is also a very caring person. So there's nothing salesy about you, even though I know you have to be successful as a salesperson because you built such a successful business.
Was it the gym that sold you on the confidence?
Listen, I'm going to say right now, I wasn't going to bring it up, but you brought it up. So now I have to tell everybody, this woman is a monster, folks. Like, anyone that's listening, if you don't know this, she is a straight beast. So we worked out together, and it was like a kind of just a group workout where we were doing these different things, and there was somebody leading it, and he's like, okay, so we're going to do 10 burpees, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do whatever, right? And there was a cardio aspect to it, and then there was like a resistance training aspect to it. So now he breaks everybody up into partners. So now Angie's my partner. Now I am 200 pounds and very thick and dense 200 pounds.
You are
like
solid.
I am like dead weight 200 pounds. And we had to do a fireman's carry walk, meaning basically I had to jump on Angie's back and she had to carry me down, back, down, back. Now I looked at her and I was like, listen, you go with, and I pointed to someone else. It was a female in the group. And she literally looked me in the eye like, oh no, you're my partner. This is what we have to do. Let's go. It wasn't even a compromise. And I swear, I feel bad because I literally jumped on her back. She wasn't even ready. I felt her knees buckle, and she
Yeah.
did it. Not just once. We had to do a bunch of different sets. And the funny thing is, there was a professional photographer there. So the best pictures, did you see the photos?
It's so
The
good.
best pictures from that event were Angie carrying me on her back. So mad respect for this woman.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to get me to do something is say, don't do it. I'm like, wait, what? Are you saying I can't?
No,
Like, I love to
oh
be
yeah.
challenged. That's what gets me going for sure.
I saw that look on your face like, hell no, we're going. We're doing this.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I loved Evolve for that reason because we got all the elements, you know, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the connections, the group. It was a really cool experience.
Amazing experience. I can't wait till the next one. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome.
So how did you get involved with that? Angela just knew you and reached out to you because you were one of our guides, which are the
Yeah.
people that were put there to, you know, help us with our different groups and our breakout sessions and sort of lead us. How did you end up in one of those positions?
So yeah, Angela and I got to know each other. She was literally one of the first people I met in Arete.
Mm.
One of the first people. So we were on, when I first joined, we wound up on a call together that somebody put, like, I don't know, it was like a pre-meeting call. It was before St. Louis.
Mm.
And so I got to know her. And then when I get to the hotel, she literally was like the first person I saw. I'm like, hey, I know you.
Yeah.
And we, right then, like literally, I just walked in, someone snaps a photo of me, Angela, I think it was Aaron Opalewski,
Mm.
and Stefan, like a bunch of people. And that became like the cover photo of, like, I don't know, a couple of different events. So like I'm literally in Arete for 5 minutes and this photo goes around and the people are like, oh yeah, you've been around forever, right? And I'm like, oh no, I'm like here 6 minutes. So got to know Angela through that first event. And then when we went to Nashville, she just included me in on a lot of the stuff that they were doing as far as dinners and stuff like that. And she pulled me aside and said, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? She's like, do you want to be a part of it? And I'm like, yeah, I love that idea. Let's do it. And that was it. That's how it worked out.
That's awesome. And what drew you to Arete? When did you join?
I joined a little over a year ago. So it was like the beginning of last year.
Oh yeah, not
And
that long.
it's not long. No,
Mhm.
it seems like it's so much longer. Like I feel like I know all you guys so well.
Yeah.
But I was a big Ed fan. So
Mm.
I started following Ed. I was a huge Ed fan. And then I didn't know Andy as well. I knew I was a fan and I knew of him, but I wasn't as, knowledgeable about a lot of the stuff that he had going on. Never did 75 hard, wasn't even really aware of it. And then I saw a post one day on Instagram about Arete, and I'm like, let me check this out. And I looked into it. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely joining this. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this looks really cool. I'm doing it. And then the
Yeah.
rest was history.
Yeah, it's so cool to have like a group of like-minded people. I know, especially for me out where I'm at, and I've tried different entrepreneur groups out here, and I struggled with similar mentalities, just different fields, different things. I'd end up with imposter syndrome because I don't have like fancy degrees or different things like that. And it wasn't until I joined Arete where I felt like this is a group of people that understands me, and none of that stuff matters to anybody within this group. And most people are very successful and driven and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that's in my feeling is that's one of the best things about Arete is the network and the energy that you pull from others. So you just hit the nail on the head, all like-minded, and we all want to succeed at the highest levels. So when we get together, whether it's an Evolve event or an Arete Live or one of the summits, you feel the energy from all the other people that are in the room. And it's the excitement of it and the confidence that you get from that is contagious. So it's not just the learnings. It's not just what am I going to learn from these speakers or what can I get from this information? it's that energy and confidence because you see other people that are just like you. Maybe they're a little further down the road. They're a little bit more ahead in some ways. But the funny thing is, you also realize that people are looking at you the same way.
Yeah.
So you become both a role model and you develop role models at the same time in the same place. It's kind of a crazy dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's nice. And I like it too, because there's so much emphasis, and you and I share this, like fitness, like in other entrepreneur groups, that's not even a thing. Health and fitness is whatever, your personal life. But in Arete, because of Andy, because of Ed, because of all of us, it is a huge focus. And it definitely, I like that because there's all this constant built-in almost accountability and strive to do better with our physical aspects as well, which we know translates to our mental and other aspects of our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that. I love the fact that there are so many people that are in the group that think the same way about fitness and nutrition. And it almost gets you, it's gotten me to another level because I feel that community of, okay, it's not just me, or, I learned this from this person. I learned this from that person. And then when you wind up I literally can't wait to go to the next event because it gives me I look out in the future. I'm like, okay, I got 3 weeks before this next event. I better get in good shape because everybody else is going to be in good shape. I don't want to be the only one. I don't want to show up and be like, Tom, what the hell happened to you, man? You let yourself go.
It's true. I mean, that's how I feel too. Like I've gotten to such a point. It's like I can't ever backslide because now I'm sort of known for the health and fitness aspect. And with that is just constant accountability, which is kind of great. And I need that because I don't ever want to slide backwards. I want to continue being in the best shape of my life, regardless of what age I am.
And it's so funny because there is such a roller coaster that happens, at least in most people. And I know with me, I look back at my life, I've had trouble being consistent.
Yeah.
There's those peaks and valleys. In my gym, there's a quote up on the wall. It's huge. I look at it every day. And the quote says, "It was much easier getting fat." And it's true. I mean,
Nice.
it's
Yeah.
real easy to lose it. It's much harder to maintain and to advance. So I'm trying not to do the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back plan and just really try to get a little bit better each day as I get older. Because the older you get, the harder it is. So
It can be.
yeah.
But again, that could just be mindset too, because we've been programmed to say it gets harder and it is what it is. Like I'm out here saying it's not. You just got to be consistent.
Well, and the other, I guess it's all relative too, because it was in a lot of ways, it was harder for me when my kids are grown, they're out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
It was much harder for me when they were around because I had less time because I was always doing stuff with the kids. So now I have more time. So it's easier in that regard.
Yeah.
It's just, you have to take care of yourself physically. I can't, I'm not going to go out and run a marathon tomorrow, but I can go out and run 4 or 5 miles. So you just have to know your body.
Yeah. And I agree. You're right. It's really been for me where I've taken it to the next level since my kids, went away to college and whatnot. And I was able to allot that time into myself. Prior, my capacity was pretty spent. Although, if I had to do it all again, I know how I would have gone, a little harder when I could and created that physical well-being throughout those years. But, we live and we learn.
And you look awesome. I told you that. You're freaking amazing. Like you really look amazing.
I appreciate that. So here's the other thing that I really love about Arete, and I know you're big on this too, is personal development, like consistently putting in steps and learning to keep improving your own condition.
Well, I think that that's something I wish I did more of when I was younger. I think one of the mistakes that we make as busy professionals or entrepreneurs is that we spend so much time being busy and trying to be productive that we're not giving ourselves the ability to grow mentally and to nurture our minds, which is what's going to move the needle in every other aspect. So I make it mandatory every single day. I want to learn something. So now what I do is when I work out, I listen to a podcast, listen to a book, an audio book while I'm working out so that I can continue to feed my mind every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and I'm like, why wasn't I doing this when I was 30?
Right.
Why wasn't I doing this earlier in my career? Because I literally take notes on my phone. I have this folder of notes. So while I'm listening to stuff, I'll stop the audio and I'll take a note to myself. And then I share it with my team. Each day I do, when we have our meetings in the morning, I do this little 2 minutes at the end. They call it 2-minute Tommy. So I do 2-minute Tommy at the end of our meetings where I just give them something, pour something into them and say, hey guys, I learned this. Today, for example, so I just learned, I went on a tour. I went to the Yankee game on Saturday. Nice. And there was this not a backstage tour, but it was like a tour package. And they talked about Derek Jeter, and he played baseball at like the top level of any athlete in really compared to anybody in baseball history for 20 years.
Yeah.
And when he retired, he didn't retire because he physically couldn't do it anymore. He retired because every single day when he went to the field, he would take 200 ground balls and 200 swings of the bat in the batting cage. Actually, I think it was 250. Wow. Every single day for 20 years. That was his routine. That helped him to perform at the highest level. He got to a point where he said he couldn't continue to do that and play a game for 3 hours. And because he wasn't able to continue that routine, he didn't feel like he was going to be able to play at the level that he wanted to play. So he said, you know what? This is a sign that I need to stop. So we talk about excellence in Arete. Yeah. And, you know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Think about the excellence of this guy, where he set the bar so high that every single day he had a standard and he stuck to that standard. And when he knew that he couldn't do that, he decided, okay, well, it's time for me to go. So I learned that over the week and I shared that with my team.
Yeah, that's such a crazy concept. Like ego wise, I don't know that I would have it in me to say, I can't do that if I don't do this, and to walk away like at the top of your game when that's your whole life and your career. That's really impressive.
And I mean, I never knew that. I always wondered, I'm like, wow, he still looks like he can play.
Yeah.
But he knew that he would have to compromise his routine. And by compromising his routine, he felt it was going to compromise his game. And that's not something he was willing to do.
Wow. Good for him. You're right. That is 100% excellence, and walking out on your terms, you know, not leaving because of injury or because you're declining statistics. It's like, yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So, I love my routine as well. I love that every single day I feed my mind, nurture my mind, and it motivates the crap out of me every day to do better and be better. So yeah, I highly recommend that personal development piece.
Okay, good. So we talked about routine here. So you are, as you said, and I'm here to witness, 200 pounds of solid muscle mass. How do you maintain that? Like, because you were saying you'll go run for 4 or 5 miles. That's not going to create and maintain that muscle. So what do you do that feeds your body in that way?
So I am super uber meticulous about my habits. So at Evolve, you weren't in my session, but at Evolve, my session was about habits and consistency. And I follow a very, very strict daily routine of nutrition, supplementation, hydration, exercise, meditation, everything that you could possibly do. I try to incorporate. I work out 7 days a week. Wow. Now, when I say work out 7 days a week, I do mix it up. It's not like I'm lifting the heaviest of weights every single day, or I'm doing, the most cardio every day. I will break it up, but I definitely do something every day, even if it's a 30-minute walk. But the way that I've been able to get to a point where physically I feel like at my peak, let's say, not that this is the best I'll ever be, but is a combination of a lot of different things, including intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
I follow a very strict intermittent fasting schedule.
Yep.
I try to get 200 grams of protein per day, 1 gram per, body weight, a pound of body weight. And my workouts are usually 90 minutes. So at least 6 days a week, I'm working out for 90 minutes at a clip. And usually 45 to 50 of that is cardio. So I believe in doing a lot of cardio. And by doing cardio and doing resistance training, I think, and keeping a really good diet, that's really been the formula and the secret for me. So it's consistency more than it is anything else.
100%. I love that. It's similar to me, but I agree with, for me, I can be a chronic overeater. So intermittent fasting is really good for me because it's like, it doesn't matter how much you eat, just eat in this window. And for me, it's just like 1 or 2 meals. And then that's why I also like CrossFit, because I hate cardio, but it forces me to do cardio stuff and endurance, but it mixes it up with the weights so that I can be strong as well. Because I do agree, that's like that's the key to overall well-being, is a good combination of both, your cardio and your muscle training. Like, I think there has to be both, or else, too much of one or the other isn't really good for long-term survival, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that the one thing that, and I talked about this at Evolve, is I could talk about my habits. You could talk about your habits. Everybody has to develop their own positive habits that are going to work for them. Intermittent fasting works really well for me. It works for you. It might not work for everyone.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow some type of program, and you shouldn't have consistency of your habits. You just have to figure out habits that work for you. And like, so for me, our kids are grown. So our schedule, our habits can be and will be different from someone that has 3 kids that are still in the house.
For sure.
I get up super early every day and I get to do different things. Some people are like, if I'm up early, my kids are up early. Doesn't help me. I might as well sleep. So I think it's important to really develop a routine that's going to be successful for you.
Yep, you're right. And it's always changing.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. So how are you able to, because this is one thing I really struggle with, is keeping your routine in when you're traveling. If you're going across time zones, you're losing time on airplanes. Like, how are you still very consistent regardless of travel? Non-negotiable?
Yeah, it's non-negotiable. I'm consistent in the fact that I work out and the fact that I'm going to continue to do the intermittent fasting piece of it. I just have to adjust it. It has to be adjusted, because especially, so like when you travel, if you're coming to New Jersey or vice versa, if I'm going to California and I'm losing 3 hours, well, my fasting schedule is going to change. It has to.
Yeah.
So now I have to adjust how I'm eating, or when I'm eating, not necessarily how I'm eating, because I'm going to try to still maintain the same type of balance as far as nutritional, intake. It's just, I'm going to have to adjust to that. So I agree. It's a pain in the neck. It takes a lot of discipline. It's so much easier to just be like, well, I'm traveling, screw it. I'm not going to work out and I'm not going to fast anymore. My workouts vary because I'm working out in hotel gyms.
Yep.
When we were at Evolve, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to work out with Chris. He's going to lead the workout. I'm working out with you guys. Whatever we're going to do for the next 40 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever it is, that's what we're doing. If it's 30 minutes, that's fine.
Yeah.
So at least I give my body something new to do, but it's still a workout. I mean, it was a good workout too. We were sweating. We got a good sweat going, the whole deal. But I give I allow myself.
I didn't, but that's normal.
What's that?
Well, I didn't really get a sweat. Well, I got a little one. Like Chris wasn't going to lighten up on us till I sweated at least a little bit.
You sweat. Yeah, I saw you. You were sweating a little bit. I sweat like I'm a sweater, so it's easy for me.
Most men
But
are.
I think the key though is I think you need to be able to, you have to allow yourself to adjust and still be able to say that you maintained and stayed consistent with your routine without necessarily doing exactly what you do when you're home.
Oh, yeah. And I love to switch it up. I really struggle if I have to do the same thing all the time. I prefer that. Like, I love just going in the gym. I wish I had a Chris in every hotel I travel to, because I'm just not a fan of the hotel gyms to begin with, because I'm like, I don't know what to do in here. And so,
Yeah.
But if I have somebody just tell me what to do, I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So what else is going on with you? Your podcast. So what did that spawn out of the pandemic?
Yeah, it did, kind of, sort of, but not because of that. I had a marketing coach that I was working with at the time, and I still kind of work with him, but he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, look, you've gotten to this other level and you're producing content, you're doing a great job." He said, "But I was thinking about you." He's like, "Because of the fact that you're so niche in what you do and you're an expert in your space and you're a great communicator," he's like, "you should have a podcast." He's like, "You really need to have a podcast." And, it was like, sometimes, there's things that are presented to you in your life and you really need to think about them. You're not sure. You get a little like, skeptical. The second it came out of his mouth, I was like, yes. I just felt it. I was like, you know what? You're right. I think I need to do this. And he helped me get it off the ground. We came up. I kind of worked with him to figure out the logistics of it, but I came up with the concept of what it was going to be, how it was going to work, the format. And then it just took off. It's crazy.
That's so cool. So would you say it's like the highlight of your week now? Like, it's such a big part of what you do?
I love it.
Yeah.
I do. Is it a highlight? Yeah, I think, I try to have a bunch of highlights, but yeah, I think it's one of them.
Yeah.
I think that, it's something that I look forward to. It lights me up. And I just, from the second I click record, it's like, all right, let's go, man. Let's do it.
Do you primarily have guests on, or do you just speak as yourself into the camera?
I primarily have guests.
Yeah.
But I do fill in with solo episodes from time to time, where when I get an idea of something that I want to share with people, I'll put together like a 20-minute episode and be like, "Hey guys, I want to share this with you because it's, it's important, or it's helped me, or, just want to communicate a message."
I love that. I need to do more of that, because I kind of had the realization, like you, after so many years of experience, where is it going? I mean, I can only talk to my staff so much. So it's like, I've got to, at least sort of communicate and convey to others, because there's just a lot of knowledge and experience here that I think a lot of people could benefit from.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's new on your horizon? Are you continuing with this sort of career path? Do you think you're going to try something else?
Yes. And no. So yes. Well, I'm not going to quit my day job. I love what I do. I feel like it's taken me a long time to get to this point. So I want to continue to build my business, but again, because my kids are grown and I don't really have a whole lot of hobbies. I'm not out there playing golf every other day. I'm starting to expand into other areas, meaning I'm starting a coaching practice for the business in my niche, because there's a huge need for it. And quite frankly, there's other people out there doing it in my space, ripping off my content, using my content to develop a coaching program. So it's like, you know what? That's not right. And that's not the only reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because there's a need. I'm doing it because I have it in my heart to do it. But I think it's time. So I'm putting together a coaching program.
I think that's a great idea, because you're right. I feel like in the last few years, especially since the pandemic, so many people are just jumping into the coaching realm without the knowledge or expertise, and sort of selling themselves as experts in whatever field. So you should definitely be that person, since you are the expert in that field.
I mean, I'm like watching people like literally use my stuff
Yeah.
to go out. And I'm like, I ran into somebody the other day at a conference, and I was just like, I mean, I was nice to him, but I knew what was going on. And, he got a little uncomfortable because I think he knew that I knew. So anyway, it's time. And I feel like there's a need. So if there weren't, I wouldn't venture into it, but I think there are certain reasons why, like, I need to have a purpose, and there's a definite purpose to this. There's people that need it. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste my time.
Absolutely. I can't imagine doing anything that I didn't have a purpose for doing. Like, well, I mean, I can imagine it and I hate it. There always has to be a driving purpose for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too. And again, this is kind of like maybe a good time in the world because people are more open to coaching and realizing that we don't have to know all the answers. We can't possibly understand sometimes, like, look at it from every angle unless you have somebody else like sort of helping you do that. So I think it's cool because we're in much different times where people, especially entrepreneurs, CEOs, are way more open to quote unquote coaching, probably way more than therapy or other things, where they're more open to receiving help to make them better at what they're doing.
For sure. And I'll let you know how it goes. I mean, I feel like I'm going to be good at it because I do it all day long as a recruiter. That's what we do. We coach people. But I'm curious to see how this goes. There's going to be like a real online coursework component to it. That's going to be the majority of it. So I'll keep you posted on that. But thanks for having me on. I hate to cut it short, but I actually have to jump onto another call. But thank you for having me on. It was this was like the fastest hour of my life. Like, is it possible that we talk for an hour?
It is. I mean, we started a little late, but yeah.
Well, you're amazing. No, this was great. Thank you for having me on. You're awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, being on my show. And then at some point I'm going to be on your show too. But thank you for coming on today.
Yeah. And we have to plan that. Let's not let too much time go. So we'll have to do that. But thank you. And keep in touch. I want to definitely keep in touch with you.
Okay, deal. Have a great day.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.